If you try to lose weight by eating less and you haven't succeeded, there's nothing necessarily wrong with you, but with your method. Today I want to share with you a much more effective and sustainable way to lose weight and keep it off that is actually based on not being hungry. And so by the end of this session, you'll know the principle that we follow, that is effectively the same one as most effective popular diet, a clear 6-step action plan that you just need to follow regularly to make sure that it happens, and finally some very concrete examples of how people put it in practice. Now, we know it works is because it's been backed by science, as well as tried and tested over thousands of members that have used that method in the past. We've drilled it down to the most essential elements to not make it overwhelming, and it's adaptable to your lifestyle. So let's get straight to it. In terms of the actual principle to follow, it's about being full but in the right way, meaning it is all about creating a calorie deficit, namely you need to eat less than what you burn in order to lose weight. But if you try to go about it by eating less, you'll probably end up being more hungry later in the day and end up blowing your calories potentially at night. Or even if you don't, your body may feel it's in starvation mode and resist losing weight by lowering your metabolism. And finally, you may also be eating stuff that actually is quite calorific. A much more effective way to go about it is eating foods that keep you full within a certain calorie range so that you are less likely to end up being hungry and send the right signals to your body that it's fine to lose weight. And so what that means in practice is two things. First, focus on eating lean food that keep you full, protein rich and fiber rich. Protein side, think chicken, eggs, tofu, etc. Fiber food, thinks green leafy vegetables like broccoli, beans or whole grains. These foods will actually keep you full for much longer, and you want to have them at every part of your meals. And the second part is just lowering foods that don't keep you full despite being very calorific. Basically, foods that are high in fats or added sugar or carbs that are low in fiber. And when you combine these things together, you end up having a day where you eat in a very satisfactory way, super yummy food, and yet you are able to stay within your calorie limit. Now you may say, well, I haven't learned anything new here because I kind of knew these concepts. Let's try it out to show you that doing it in practice is a little bit harder. I'm going to show you two salads that look more or less the same. This one and this one. In fact, they're not at all in terms of the principle I'm talking about. This salad is in fact way more calorific and less filling. Why? Because it has way more oil in it, and in fact doesn't have as much protein as that one, which I'll show you in a second, and the vegetables are not very fiber rich. On the contrary, this salad has less oil in it because I actually put the vinaigrette myself, where I put some oil, mustard and vinegar, and actually just less oil in general, but still super yummy, which is usually not what happens. For example, when you go to a restaurant, they chuck in a lot of oil. And in terms of keeping you full, there's more tuna in here, could be chicken or whatever, and some of the vegetables like spinach are actually fiber rich, means they also help to keep you full for longer. And so basically that salad will have less calories in the day, keep you full for longer, and therefore help you create the calorie deficit that you want to do. And you haven't traded off anything in terms of yumminess. So to put that into practice, here is a very simple 6-step protocol you could follow that we know is kind of what makes most people succeed in doing it consistently. Number one, you want to structure your day around a number of key core meals, namely 3 meals, breakfast, lunch and dinners, 1 or 2 snacks, and then drink water, tea, coffee as much as you want. Doing it that way has 2 benefits. The first is that you are able to really think how you're going to achieve your calorie targets, protein targets per meal, and be very intentional about it. So you know you've got a certain target, as opposed to, for example, spreading it out into sort of many meals where you start not being able to count anymore, and then you end up kind of losing track, and that's where things usually derail. And the second reason is because by eating less, you create, and at sort of regular time of the days, you create cues that avoids you feeling like you need to eat at some point. For example, I've got a protein shake at 4 o'clock every day between my lunch and my dinners, which really makes it much easier between my lunch and my protein shake at 4 p.m. not to eat, because I know the protein shake is coming, and same thing after the protein shake until the dinner. The second part, once you've got a key structure of your meals, is to know your targets in terms of calories, protein, and fiber. Now, I'm going to share at the bottom of the video a simple table you can follow. But to keep it simple for now, most women need to achieve a certain calorie target of around 1,500 calories, call it, until 1,800. Most men, calories between 1,800 and 2,000 calories a day. This is the target that creates a deficit of 500 calories, and compared to what you would burn normally in a day to maintain your weight. So you create a deficit of 500 calories, and that makes you lose roughly a pound a week. Secondly, proteins. You want to hit a certain level of proteins at roughly 0.8 grams to 1 grams of proteins per pound of body weight. So for women, it could mean around 130 to 150 grams of proteins. For men, 150 to say 180 grams of proteins a day. And then for fiber, you want to hit around up to 30 grams for women and up to 35 grams for men. Now, once you've got these daily targets, you really want to break them down into more like meal targets, because it's much easier to say, right, I need to achieve 300 calories roughly, doesn't have to be precise, for my breakfast, and include 30 grams of protein and 5 grams of fiber, which, for example, you can achieve by saying, I'm going to have 3 egg omelette with some yogurt and some berries. And when you start structuring your day like that, it's much easier to actually hit the target and not undershoot the protein, which is often what happens with people. They think, oh, I'm eating protein, but in fact, when they don't sort of look at it, they undershoot it, or overshooting your calories. Which leads us to the third part of the plan, is to try to log your meals and track them. Because again, you want in the beginning to get a really good sense of how many calories, protein and fiber are in your meals. Because people, again, tend to overshoot on their calories and undershoot on the proteins and fiber that keep them full, which is usually why, despite best intention, they don't hit their plan. The good news is that there's a lot of apps today where you can just take a picture and AI will pretty much estimate correctly with the right tool those targets. Fitmate Coach provides you one of them, such apps. Step number 4, now that you know what you need to do, is to not try to make necessarily all changes at once, but rather one meal at a time and add very clear target for the week. For example, you may start with breakfast and go, okay, I'm going to nail my breakfast this week, because you need to think, you know, am I going to cook? Have I got time to cook? Or maybe I need to buy eggs at Starbucks or make some overnight oats so I can drink them in the car while dropping the kids. You really want to be intentional about kind of your targets, how many times you're going to do it this week, and the strategy you're going to follow, as per the examples I gave you. Once you've nailed the meal, then you move on to the next meal, and then to the next meal. It will take a little bit longer, but you are much more likely to be successful to do it. So totally worth doing it that way. After that, you want to be focusing, when you think about kind of what you want to tackle first, try to focus first on feeling full rather than cutting the calories, because the more you are eating meals that keep you full, the more easy it will be later to cut calories that are kind of extra because you are full, if that makes sense. That being said, there are certain calories that you can cut right away that are just like low-hanging fruit. I'll give you one example. and there's more in the link that I will share, is when you eat out, you are much more likely, even if the meal looks fine, to be very calorific. Why? Because restaurants deep fry, or takeaways deep fry, put a lot of oil, etc. And it's usually very hard to stay in a calorie target. If, on the other hand, you cook at home a few more meals, or bring some home food with you to the office or whatever, you are much more likely to be in control. For example, I bring my salad to the office every day, and so I am much more in control of the oils I put in, and making sure that the chicken or tuna that I put in meets my protein targets. Same with fiber. Finally, you want to log your weight as regularly as you can, because doing so keeps you alert, allows you to course correct in time, and if you are starting to see a trend going down, that will keep you much more motivated to keep going, because you know it's working. Don't worry too much about daily fluctuations, you know, you just want to see the trend down. So that is it for kind of the 6-step plan. The next thing I want to share with you is that once you know the foundation and the plan to follow, comes the what I call tactics, or the skills you need to build to put this plan in practice, you know, because your life is very different to other people's life. That's when it comes very personal. The foundation and the action plan are universal, the tactics are specifics, and I don't want to be prescribing tactics, but what I can do is share with you some examples of very successful members, the type of tactics they've developed once they've mastered the foundation and the action plan. One of them is, for example, to make smart swaps of high-calorie foods to low-calorie foods that are more filling. For example, when you cook with oil, use a cooking spray, because then there's actually less oil that goes in and you don't need that much to actually cook. Another example of a swap will be switching rice, which is actually not that filling for the amount of calorie, to cauliflower rice, which you just chop, and you don't feel the difference, but it is less calories and more fiber. So that's one example of a smart tactic. Another one that I really like is simply to allocate a number of calories of your daily target towards the weekend to indulge yourself. So what people call a cheat day, but it's not really a cheat day because it's part of your plan. So for example, if your calorie targets per day to lose a pound a week is 1600, you eat at 1500 calories, you keep 100 calories per day, and times 7 is 700 calories that you can enjoy eating a pizza or a cake or drink something that you enjoy that has calories in it. Now, this is where we are on the sort of tactics. There's a few more tactics that as you go along, you'll develop. For example, once you start traveling, there's no reason to stop this plan. You just need to use tactics to apply the principles in the travel. For example, you may decide not to rely on airport food or the plane food. They usually won't actually meet the type of principles we need. But you can instead bring food with you to the plane, and that will make sure that there's one less event where you don't hit the plan because you kept it in your control and did not leave it to chance. Now, it's not going to always be perfect, but it's about consistency, and it's about saying that when something doesn't work well, you know, you had a fight with your boss or partner or whatever, yes, it's going to be a difficult day or maybe two, but then just come back to the plan, because your weight loss goal will not be defined by simply one or two events that didn't go well. It's a trend that you want to follow. We've spoken only about nutrition, and I'm just going to say a quick word. Why have I not spoken about other things? Yes, you can do a lot on exercise, sleep, and stress, but nutrition is by far the biggest lever in order to achieve your weight loss goal. Think about it that way. Adding a little bit too much oil in a meal is the equivalent of actually 1 hour of brisk walking. And so being mindful of what you eat could have a tremendous impact compared to overworking on the exercise side. It doesn't mean that those other things are not important. On the contrary, they will help you a lot burn extra calories, build lean mass, which is very important to keep your metabolism high. That's a subject of another thing. But if you master your nutrition, you would have done the vast majority of the heavy lifting in order to do it. And the final thing I'd say in terms of increasing your chance to do it is to add a layer of support to help you stay consistent in doing the activities. Some people could just read a book or look at this video and basically apply it all with kind of by themselves. And if you are one of these person, that's amazing, you know, and I'm very excited for you to get started. Most people need some level of support, whether it is to some extent by being part of a group of like-minded people doing the same thing in order to keep you motivated, or going the next step, which is actually to take, for example, a coach. FitMate Coach offers coaching where people help you kind of stay on track, define the goals of the week, analyze what went well, give you the support you need, and stay accountable again against these principles. It's worth you investing time in thinking about the support that will make it much more likely you manage to do it in the long term. I hope this video was helpful, and please have a go. Have a start. You can start tomorrow with one key action, one step at a time, and build it from there.